In the next phase of our project, we're going to create the layout for the team roster, and that's going to be a table layout. So once again, I'm going to go to my project manager, right click on layout and choose new, and I want a new layout resource file. And I'm going to call this one roster. I don't want a constraint layout, instead I'm going to do a table layout. Now we could also make this a linear layout and put a table inside the linear layout. And in some cases that's probably easier to do. But I want to show you how to use a table layout. So we now have a table out in our component tree. So I'm going to click in the up the top here, the attributes, and just type in layout. And that shows me all the layout options here. What I want is layout margin. And I'm going to do the horizontal. And we'll just use our horizontal margin that we set up as 16 dp. I'm going to do the same thing for the vertical. And that gives us a nice little margin around our table. So now as we build our table, we're going to do it with rows. And I'm going to first set up the table for the players. And then I'm going to come back and add a row for our logo and the page name and our return button. So in the palette, I'm going to choose Layouts, Table Row, add a table row to my table layout by dragging it down. And then inside that table row, we're going to add 3 text views. Now let's go ahead and add all 3. The first text view is I'm going to set my text to be none. This is going to be the headers of our table, and the first column is going to have the uniform number of the player. The second one will be pause, the position they play, and the third one will be player. Now what I want to do is have these spaced out a little bit. And one thing I recommend in working with table rows, just from some trial and error, I have discovered that it seems like if you make the layout width of the table row not match parent and not wrap content, but 0 dp, tends to work the best. Tables can be a little temperamental from my experience. Okay, what I'm going to do next is set up some weights to my 3 columns here. Right now they are taking up as much space as they need. I'm going to spread these out a little bit. So I'm going to click on the first text view, and up in the attributes I'm just going to search for weight. I'm going to set the layout weight to 1. These are going to be relative to one another. I'm going to do the same thing for my position column, make it 1. And then for the player column, I'm going to make it 5. So it'll take up 5/7 of the table width. This is relative sometimes to the values that are in the column, so it may kind of an ideal weight. Okay, so there's my first row. Now here's where working in the code comes in handy. So I'm going to go to the code. I'm going to give my text views names, because when I copy and paste this, those names are going to come in. I have to change them each time. So I'm going to name them something that makes sense. So this will be TV num 0, 0 being my row. TV pause 0, and TV player 0. Now I'm going to take that table row, copy, and paste, and I'm going to change my IDs from 0s to 1, since this is column 1. Okay, so now I'm not getting any errors there. I'm going to change the values of my text. So my first player is going to have a number of 24. It's going to be a pitcher, so I'll put a P there. And the player's name will be Abernathy Allen. Then I'm going to copy that, paste, and again we change my numbers here to 2. And this one, the number is going to be 43. The position is going to be first base. I want a 1B. And the name is Baker Bobby. I'm going to turn on my split value. So you can begin to see how this table is being built. So the next thing is to create some more table rows by copying and pasting and just changing the values. All right, I completed my table. I'm only doing 6 players rather than all 25. That's all you need to do. Just want you to get a feel for creating a table. And one thing I want to do is take my text boxes up here at the top, and I want to make those bold. So in the component tree, I'm just going to select all 3 of those. And then we'll come down to text style and make those bold. Now I'd like to have my logo above this and then the label of team roster and a return button. So we're going to add 2 more rows to our table layout. I'm going to go to the layouts category in the palette, grab table row, and I'm going to position it. I'm going to put them both in here. I'm going to position it just above the first row that we had. I'm going to make sure you don't indent one under the other because it's going to be 2 separate table rows. I'm going to take the first one and we'll go to the common area, and here I want an image view. And we're going to choose Raccoons as our source. Now when I did that, notice what happened. It put it in the first column and pushed everything over to the right. So those weights of our columns are kind of dependent on how everything fits in the contents of those columns. What we're going to do is take this image view and we're going to set an attribute of layout span, and we're going to say 3. I want it to span 3 columns. Now it spans the 3 columns but doesn't occupy all 3 columns. So again, I'm going to bring up the weight. And my layout weight here, we can also do these in percentages. I want it to be 100%. So I'm going to type in 100. And now it takes up the full width of my row, 100% of it, spanning all 3 columns. That has presented a challenge for me in several cases before I figured out that setting the weight to 100 solved my problem as far as spanning the columns fully. Let's do the next table row. And here we're going to add a layout of a horizontal linear layout. And in that horizontal linear layout, we're going to add a text view and a button. So for my text view, I'm going to go ahead and set the weight here while we're at this. I'm going to set that to 75, and we'll set the weight of the button to 25. And then once again, I'm going to take my linear layout and set that weight to 100. Now my button moved over to the left. I'm just going to drag my text view back above it to put it on the left. My button looks a little bit big to me, so I'm going to change this a little bit. Let's make this 80 and 20. Okay, so my text view, we're going to set the text to our resource string of roster. And then I'm just going to go back to, say, Ronnie layout, go to the code, and for my text view, we had centered it, made it 24 SP as far as the text size, and made it bold. So I'm going to copy that information, come back to my roster XML, and I'm just going to paste that information in. I don't want to have the string of Ronnie, so I'll just get rid of that. And now it made it big, and it centered it, and made it bold. I also want to put a little margin layout here at the top where I can do padding. I want to bring this down a little bit. So I'll come over to layout margin top, and let's make this 4 dp. Now, I'm still having a problem here with my columns being messed up by the contents of that row. What I need to do is come back to my linear layout and give it a span. A layout span of 3. And that will solve my problem. And once again, my button kind of moved over. That happens sometimes. I'm going to just simply drag the text view above the button. And there is our table layout. Now let me show you another way to do this, and that's using a linear layout. I'm not going to walk you through the process, but I'll show you the result. Here's my same layout, but done with a linear layout. And you can see I've got a linear layout at the top. I had an image view, which is my first one, just as we've done in the past. And then a linear layout, horizontal, with the text view and the button. And then I added a table layout as my third item and built the rows there. You might find that easier. Once you learn the trick of making your row 0 dp as far as the width and setting the spans and working with the weight inside of the rows, I think you'll be able to conquer table layouts. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the Android App Development Cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.